The act of adapting something into a different form of media is inherently hard. For example, turning a book into a movie is hard because a book is often longer than your average film length, and there are certain things that just can't be translated that well. A book is capable of describing certain things within the story, like a character's expression, and it lets the reader use their own imagination to fill the gaps, whereas a film is completely given to you visually. Even something that would seem to translate easily, like a graphic novel into animation, has things that work differently between the mediums, such as the reveal of a page turn or the paneling, or vice versa, the fact that models can simply not be as detailed as their manga counterparts. It's unrealistic to redraw something like that over and over again because of how much line mileage it has to make it just move an inch. Because of the inherent differences between these forms of art, when something gets adapted, I'm not someone who's a diehard on it having to be exact to the original. If the adaptation is able to change things for the better, whether it be using its differences to its advantage or simply altering and adding things, I'm usually all for it if done right. And the anime adaptation of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable is, in my opinion, a fantastic example of what a good adaptation is. Something that is not only faithful, but also changes things which improve the viewing experience. The reason I'm singling out Part 4 from the other anime adaptations is because this part has the most changes in both its art style and story structure. I won't be talking about the art style because Super Eyepatch Wolf's video about Part 4 already exists, which I will be linking in the description. I'd rather shift you towards a good content creator than having you just repeat the same information. This video will be focusing on the restructuring of the Part 4 story in the anime and how it improves it. Obviously, there will be spoilers for Part 4. While many of the parts of JoJo's have added scenes, or even scenes that were cut, Part 4 is currently the only part that has the most changes within how events are shown, fundamentally changing how we see characters and plot beats. This could sound alarming, a foreign identity coming in and changing an author's original vision, but these changes actually work towards Part 4's benefit. And this is because of hindsight. Writing on a weekly basis, Hirohiko Araki, the author of JoJo's, didn't have the hindsight to see what he wanted to write or not, and how to order things to be the most optimal. But because David Productions' team created the anime adaptation more than 2 decades after the original manga, they were able to have the hindsight to make changes that benefited how the story was being told. This can be seen in how David Production decided to adapt the following arcs: Shigechi's Harvest, Yoshikage Kira Wants to Live Quietly, Cinderella, and Sheer Heart Attack. This is the original order that the manga tells these arcs. Shigechi's Harvest is an average episodic Part 4 arc where our protagonist Josuke and his friend Okuyasu encounter a middle schooler named Shigechi, who shares the same kind of power that they do, a stand. After teaming up together to use the stand to gather money and lottery tickets, hijinks ensues due to Shigechi's greed. At the end of the arc, the conflict is resolved, and Shigechi is added to the large ensemble cast of the town of Morio. The next arc is Yoshikage Kira Wants to Live Quietly, where we are introduced to the daily life of the main antagonist of the part, Kira. After Shigechi mistakenly takes a sandwich back from Kira which contains evidence of his murders, it brings him into conflict with the main cast. In the end, Shigechi finds out that Kira is the killer living within Morio, and that he also has a stand. Because of this, he ends up dying tragically trying to get this information to Josuke. With Shigechi's death, our main characters have even more motivation to find the mysterious killer within their town, and they even have a clue in the form of a button that Shigechi's stand managed to retrieve from Kira's jacket. Now, after watching a middle schooler literally be disintegrated to dust by a serial killer who is still walking free within Morio, one would expect some urgency in the next arc. However, our next arc is Cinderella. We now return back to the usual Part 4 episodic structure, where Yukiko, a character introduced earlier in the part, finds a salon owned by the stand user Aya, who says she can make the love of her life fall for her, being able to utilize her stand, Cinderella, which can alter her appearance to improve her fortune. Immediately, this feels jarring. Shouldn't we be more focused on finding the killer who we now know is a stand user? At the very beginning of the arc, there is mention that Joseph and Josuke are trying to see if any tailors recognize the button, but that's it. After learning that one of their friends was robbed of their life, it feels awkward for these characters to be returning to their usual schedule. However, this arc isn't some unimportant garbage that Araki just decided to add in to ruin the flow of Kira's chase. It's a necessary piece for the next arc, which is Sheer Heart Attack. The Sheer Heart Attack arc follows Jotaro and Koichi as they find a tailor that recognizes the button that Shigechi retrieved. Unfortunately, this leads them into conflict with Kira's second stand ability, Sheer Heart Attack. After a bloody battle, Jotaro and Koichi are able to gravely injure Kira, which also gives enough time for Josuke and Okuyasu to arrive. Kira is forced to flee, and the main cast follows in hot pursuit. It seems to be all over for Kira. His identity is finally revealed, meaning that all his running seems fruitless. Then, the main cast finds where Kira decided to run to. It's the salon shop that Yukiko visited in the previous arc. and it dawns on both us, the audience, and the characters. Kira has used Cinderella to steal someone else's identity and blend back into society, resetting all the progress that our characters have made. This right here is one of Part 4's strongest story beats, and we can see how all 4 of these arcs are vitally important to making it work and hit as hard as it does. However, despite being strong, the order that these arcs are presented in hampers the weight and flow of the story. Having Shigechi be introduced and then immediately killed off in the next arc barely gives his character any breathing room. He feels like he was just introduced to be killed off, which, well, he was, but especially within Part 4, which emphasizes the idea of the town of Morio feeling a real town, where we know where the characters live and what they do, it feels awkward. The Cinderella and Sheer Heart Attack arc suffers from the same awkwardness, except even more apparent. Cinderella's introduction breaks the flow of tension from Shigechi's death in order to make the following arc work, also giving it no breathing room. This lack of breathing room makes both Shigechi and Aya feel like plot points instead of characters blending into the episodic arcs of Part 4, which is necessary for the big reveal at the end of the Sheer Heart Attack arc. That arc hits so hard because suddenly, all the episodic arcs feel less episodic and more like seeds planted that were now blooming, a reward to the audience for watching these previous arcs and learning more about the town of Morio. The anime fixes all these issues with one small but vital change. The Cinderella arc now happens after the Shigechi's Harvest arc. Immediately, we can see how this helps. Shigechi now has a break between his introduction and his death, while simultaneously giving Aya a break between her introduction and death. And now, the episodic arcs between these 4 arcs are grouped together, helping them blend in with the rest of the previous episodic arcs, making the reveal at the end of the Sheer Heart Attack arc hit even harder. Finally, with the Cinderella arc moved, there is no longer a break in tension between Yoshikage Kira Wants to Live Quietly and Sheer Heart Attack, because now they occur back to back. David Production was also able to add scenes into the anime that helped Aya feel more like a character because of these changes. Now that she was introduced before Shigechi's death in the anime, when all the characters meet up to discuss his death, she's present and even has some lines discussing what just happened. Something she couldn't have done in the manga because she just wasn't introduced at that point.
An eye out for this madman.
I can't imagine he would pay me a visit, but I'll take some precautions.
From just a small change, due to the hindsight that David Productions had, they were able to improve this issue, showing the power that an adaptation can have. Another arc that highlights the strength of the Part 4 adaptation is the anime original arc, July 15th, Thursday. While I say this arc is anime original, I don't mean to the extreme that the contents of it were created by David Production later on. What makes up this arc are all present within the original Part 4 manga, being a fusion of 4 different arcs. And this is an example of one of the biggest story restructures David Productions has ever done for any of the animated parts so far. One of the main criticisms I've seen of Part 4 is that the pace after Kira's Great Escape slows down as the characters encounter even more Villain of the Week stand users due to Kira's father, who was a ghost in the picture, creating new villains to get in their way. David Productions decided to take these criticisms to heart and decided to take these 4 arcs before the finale, Superfly, Enigma, My Dad Is Not My Dad, and Cheap Trick, and combine them all into the July 15th Thursday arc. This is honestly a pretty good decision. Part 4 is long, and the Villain of the Week format can be easy to burn out on. By combining these 4 arcs together, it allowed David Productions to not only cut out fluff from these arcs, but have them occur simultaneously, our perspective cutting between different characters and their conflicts. Through having these arcs happen all at the same time, it adds a sense of urgency. In the manga, these arcs felt like side quests that each character just went through to finally reach the final boss that was Kira. But with the change that these arcs are now happening at the same time and having the audience's perspective switch between all of them, it gives a sense that our protagonists are being surrounded, cornered from all sides. And this urgency that the audience feels because of the cutting between plots A, B, C, and D helps them settle into the tension of the final arc of Part 4. While the pace of the second half of Part 4 before the finale isn't completely rectified, this change really does help. Hell, I remember a friend said that they really enjoyed this arc when they were watching Part 4, which I don't think they would have enjoyed as much if David Production had stayed as close as possible to the manga. Overall, making big changes like this is brave because it's stepping into unknown territory. Maybe it'll actually downgrade the story, or the fans will react harshly. And I'm so glad that David Productions decided to take that risk. The alterations to the Part 4 story structure vastly improve the quality of its story, and stands as a testament to what a good adaptation can do. I mean, it's in the name. It's not a copy, it never will be, but it can damn well adapt to this new form of media. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4 is a fantastic part, and I'm glad that the changes in translation managed to make it even better.